Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie and TV discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Porters, and I'm joined by sweet Shanta Kovacs from the internet.
That song sounds pretty good. What's the name of it?
I don't know. And Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and the song is called Ghostbusters.
Oh, I've heard of that.
That's the theme from Ghostbusters by one Ray Parker Jr.
I want a new Ghostbuster.
Who some have called the Kenny Loggins of the 80s.
That's what the Messina guy called him.
I've listened to Ray Parker Jr. talk about his success and everything, and it's so lovely to hear him just not be jaded about his career. It's like, look, that was my one hit, but you know what? I really enjoy it. I love all the things that it's brought me. It kind of makes you happy that somebody just, he only got one really giant thing in life, but he's super okay with it. I like that guy.
Yeah, well, he didn't lose it, but somebody somewhere lost a big lawsuit over it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, basically they wanted I Want a New Drug.
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah.
Ghostbusters, and Huey Lewis said no, so they said we want a song that sounds like I Want a New Drug. So they did Who You Gonna Call, and then they go to court and they play them side by side, and enough people thought it was similar enough they had to pay some money.
Meanwhile, Weird Al just waltzes on by on his unicycle.
Yeah, fully paying the songwriting rights to the people who wrote the songs.
Yes.
Yeah.
But unless you're Coolio and you just go, he didn't give me any money, it's like, yeah, shut up, Coolio. Oh, and by the way, if you might have to dig for it a little bit, but there is like an SNL sketch from probably, well over a decade ago at this point, where Kenan Thompson plays Ray Parker Jr. talking about the story, the behind the music of Ghostbusters. It's quite good.
I'm gonna have to.
Where he was actually he claims to have been actually haunted, and that's what led to it.
Oh man,
it's good stuff. Well, we are talking about Batman the Animated Series. As long as this podcast has been going on, we've covered some Batman the Animated Series, but not nearly enough, and we decided to put a little bit of a kibosh on that today because we are talking about episodes, I think 16 and 17 of season 1, the Two-Face two-parter. You can't get better than that. Two-Face two-parter. See what they did there with that, everybody? But before we do
it's episode 17 and 18.
17 and 18. Very close. But we're going to check all that good stuff out. But before we do want to say a giant thank you to everyone who supports this show over at patreon.com/HMP. There you get pre-show, post-show, and of course, Dinger Zone. And we'd like to thank all of you guys because it is our Patreon Appreciation Month here and everything. And it's because of you guys that this show keeps on keeping on. And we love that about you. And if you can't support this show over at Patreon, do this. Share the show with your friends. Tell other people about it. Let them know. And if you can't even do that, my goodness, why don't you at least go over to iTunes and give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And we've got a couple for you today. This one comes to us from Fuzzy B, 5 stars. It is entitled, One of My Favorite Podcasts. Well, isn't that nice? And it reads as follows. Very entertaining, though once a month they pick a truly horrible movie and do an even worse job discussing it.
Very true. I cannot disagree.
The rest of the time, it's pretty darn solid. Well, Fuzzy B, we can't necessarily disagree with you in that particular one, but at our that's really up to the Patreon people. So the beef is really more with them than it is with us. We give them the ones. They're the ones that select it.
Never shift the blame to the guys with the money. Never shift the blame to the guys with the money.
They vote on it. Listen, I'm only just pointing out what's absolutely true. But I think sometimes they do it just specifically to spite us. I think we got lucky last month or the beginning of this month when we didn't tell them what we secretly wanted them to pick, and then they picked it. So we always got to keep it close to the vest, I think.
Oh, yeah.
We got another one here from Wing Gundam. I enjoy your work over Tokyo. It's entitled, What a Wonderful Find. 5 stars. I stumbled upon this podcast by way of Mandalorian 30 Questions podcast, and I feel like I've struck gold. 3 people who all seem to genuinely like each other, share a wonderful chemistry, and talk, often in much more kind terms than I do, about the wonderful world of nerd movies. This podcast is consistently funny, interesting, and I even learn things too. Thanks for what you guys do. That comes from Wing Gundam. Wing Gundam, thanks for that review, man.
Yeah, thanks to both of them. Fuzzy B, Wing Gundam. We love you guys.
And we got another one coming in next week, which was actually our 200th review on iTunes, which is very nice. So be a part of that crew. Go review us on iTunes. It kind of helps things go out. And for whatever weird reason, it's just, I don't know how algorithms work or anything. So if it certainly can't hurt it. I'll tell you that much. Well, let's get to it. We do have a little bit of mail here as well, so you know what it is.
Mail's here.
This first one comes to us from our buddy Nate, a.k.a. King Solomon's Frog. It's entitled, COVID plus HMP equals 217. What could that possibly mean? Let's read on. Dear Adam, Sean, and Bruce, nearing the 1 year mark of my COVID quarantine, I'd like to thank you guys for helping me get through it. I found you in 2018, but wasn't a regular weekly listener until 2019. As of last March, I had about 175 episodes that I needed to listen to in order to catch up.
Yikes.
I took the time I had at home over the last year to watch and then listen to as many of those shows as I could, including the new ones. And as of this email, I have only 8 episodes left. 217 episodes of HMP in a calendar year.
Wow, I feel sorry for you, man.
Yeah, me too. That was a bad idea.
Are we going to have to help pay his psychology bills now?
Yeah, you need some help. Thank you for this community you have created. Thank you for all the great content, and thank you for letting me be a part of it. Yours, Nate, a.k.a. King Solomon's Frog. Thanks for that
thanks,
email.
Lovely
man.
letter.
Really
You
appreciate
didn't get a handwritten letter this week?
So we did that. Well, that's where I'm going next. We got another one. This one comes to us from Marty. His email is entitled, You Asked For It.
Which you did. You wanted a handwritten letter.
And so here's his little right here. Damn you guys! It's like a red rag to a bull. If Adam won't read my emails on the show, then here's a handwritten letter scanned. Good luck reading my handwriting. I haven't written for the past decade. So, Marty, I will read your letter here that you so graciously did scan in. And by the way, as being a fellow left-hander, this isn't bad as far as your handwriting goes. Don't you worry. You're not like my chicken scratch.
It might just be the British accent, but I'm picturing like calligraphy here.
It's cursive-y. I'm a block letter man myself. But no, he wrote it out. So let's go ahead and. But I have to read his letter proper. So if you'll indulge me. Hey guys, hope you're doing well and doing fine. A bit like Stan at Eminem's song, I've been emailing you, but you still ain't reading. So maybe an old-fashioned letter is worth a go. I wrote a long letter about TMNT, so I won't bother rereading it again, only to say that in the UK, it was Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, because ninja's so offensive, I guess. But damn, that episode gave me nostalgia. Superman and Lois? I don't know if I can take any more Berlanti angst. Anyway, I'll keep this letter short. If you can read my left-handed scrawl, good luck. How about a review of Ash vs. the Evil Dead? I've seen a few, and it's quite fun. Love the show and looking forward to the 30Q Marvels. Love, Marty. Well, thanks for your email there, Marty.
Some of your best work there, Adam. Good collaboration.
I gotta admit, Adam, maybe we need to put music underneath all of the letters that you read.
Yeah, what?
I think it should be Stan every time, too.
Dear Stan.
I will definitely do. I will if anyone else writes in and does exactly like Marty did, write it and scan it or take a picture of it and then send it in. We'll do it in that style. But I did have to. I had to read it ahead of time and do it because I tried doing things live a couple of times to practice, and I'm like, I'm not going to nail that timing.
Yeah, you got to get that pacing just right to make that work with Stan.
But thank you for that. And if you would like to send an email to this show, email us at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. Let's close up that here mailbag.
Mail's here.
Alrighty, boys and girls, let's get into it. We're talking Two-Face. You know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do we got this week?
Well, you might not know that Rupert Thorne is a character from the comics, and there is a little more to him than simply being a generic mob guy in the background. He was created by Stephen Englehart and Walt Simonson and first appeared in Detective Comics in 1977, making him roughly the same age as Star Wars. His background is something totally not found in the real world. He's a corrupt politician. Boy, how do these comic books dream up such far-fetched ideas? His political and criminal activities, and is that a redundant statement, Adam? I don't know. Anyway, they end up getting him mixed up in organized crime, and he's blackmailed into turning the city against Batman. I always thought billionaires had all the politicians in their pockets. But I kid. I'm far too apathetic to care either way. Thorne runs a failed campaign for mayor, then decides, this criminal thing seems like a better gig than politics anyway. He becomes one of 3 crime bosses, with Penguin and Joker being the other 2, who bids on Batman's true identity at an underground auction. But rather than take a chance on losing the auction, he kidnaps and tortures the guy holding the information, Hugo Strange. Thorne accidentally goes too far and kills Strange before getting the information and is psychologically haunted by the affair. Later, Rupert Thorne starts pulling strings behind the political scenes and orders a corrupt mayor to fire Jim Gordon. Thorne then gets his hands on some photos taken by Vicky Vale that reveal Batman's identity as Bruce Wayne and immediately hires Deadshot to assassinate the billionaire. In case you're not aware, Deadshot is unsuccessful, a piece of lore that goes on to be known as the only time Deadshot ever missed. I think they may have shown that in the first Suicide Squad movie, starring the guy from that movie about football players getting concussions. You know, the guy who's famous for being married to the hippo from Madagascar. And I'm not calling her a hippo. It's just an animated character she voiced in a movie called Madagascar. And I don't think it was actually filmed on location because I've been to Madagascar and it looked different in real life than it does in that movie. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Rupert Thorne. He disappeared from comics for about 20 years or so, then showed up as an inmate in 2006. Unlike most criminals in Gotham, I don't think he's escaped yet because the recent 3 Jokers storyline showed him still behind bars in a cell near Joe Chill. So now you know about Rupert Thorne and the hippo from Madagascar. You're welcome.
Here's a little synopsis. Though the ever calm Harvey Dent puts on a happy face in his bid for re-election as Gotham District Attorney, he can't suppress his psychotic split personality of Big Bad Harv, a side that's been given a horrifying half when crime boss Rupert Thorne's plan to blackmail Dent goes awry in a chemical factory. Why is it always a chemical factory?
Always chemicals.
There's so many chemicals, and they're always in big giant vats that are left wide open. Certainly nothing OSHA is involved here at all.
You got a thing that works, you just stick with it.
Yeah, I guess.
Sometimes if it ain't broke, you don't have to try to fix it.
Yeah,
So I've got to tell you guys, a bit here, because when you suggested this last week, I'm going to tell you, I rolled my eyes, and
As I would
I
imagine.
immediately thought to myself, I have got to fix my problem here, because like Batman the Animated Series, even though I am not a huge fan of the cartoons, I am a fan of Batman the Animated Series. So like kind of get over yourself is where I was at. And so I did a super deep dive into Batman the Animated Series. Because during that time, like I was too cool for all of this stuff at this point. Like I did like Batman, but it wasn't something I watched every day. It wasn't even something I watched once a month. Like it was a super occasional, like, I got a couple of minutes. I'll watch an episode of this. And so when you suggest this last week, and I rolled my eyes, I was like, I am going to do a deep dive to know why this is such a beloved property. And saying this is really good isn't enough. So I watched 2 different documentaries on this show being made. And man, if I wanted to start a new love affair with something, it would absolutely be Batman the Animated Series after watching those documentaries. It's terrific. They are terrific.
Yeah, it
Now,
was the
where,
show
Where
that
could somebody find those documentaries? Because I might like to watch those.
I went on to YouTube, and
Uh-huh.
two of them are from one of them's from like a special release of the Blu-ray. I want to say from like 2012 or something, and the other one is when they first when Batman the animated series was prime time. And they made like, hey, see, this isn't just for kids anymore, like they've been doing for 30 years with comic books.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's one of those.
Cool.
And-
I'd have to check those out.
Man, it is so interesting to learn. Like, I didn't realize, one of the things I didn't realize about this show is that it's basically because it's because of Batman 89 for sure. But the other reason is Tiny Toons, which I did not know. So basically, Steven Spielberg goes to Warner Brothers and says, hey, why don't we make Looney Tunes again, just a different version of it, so we don't have to stay, like on brand with Bugs and Donald and stuff, or Daffy. So let's make Tiny Toons versions of Looney Tunes. And since Warner Brothers really, really wants to be in the Steven Spielberg game, they're like, absolutely, what a great idea, Steven. And so they dump a bunch of money and they get a lot of good people into Tiny Toons. And what they end up doing is the creators of Tiny Toons, they're basically told by Warner Brothers brass, we don't care how much money it takes. We don't care if this show is successful. Literally, we just want to please Steven Spielberg. And so they spend a whole lot of money, which they hadn't done in a very long time on a cartoon, especially a after school cartoon. And so they do that. And then Batman hits, and Warner Brothers is like, hey, why don't we make a Batman cartoon? And so a bunch of the people from Tiny Toons end up going to Batman the Animated Series. And a bunch of the people who worked on the animated series used to work on Super Friends. And so everybody has a really bad taste in their mouth because they were so hamstrung on Super Friends that it almost made them want to get out of the business. And so they have these showrunners who are like, no, we're going to be able to do what we want. And somebody's like, is Batman going to be able to punch people? And they're like, yes. Awesome. And then will weapons be involved? Absolutely. Really? Unbelievable. And so as this keeps happening, they keep getting better and better creators on this show, to the point where they're hiring Mike Mignola to design Dr. Freeze.
Wow.
Mr. Freeze. It's like a perfect storm of creativity to make this show. And basically, Batman the Animated Series and The Simpsons takes cartoons out of the ghetto in the span of 3 years into being all I want to do is work on cartoons. Because if you think about it, Disney's in the tank for a couple of years where they're just making the worst animated movies of all time at that point. I think that they're Beauty and the Beast around this time, but
Well, Beauty and the Beast was a big one, but when you really started to get into the kind of that crappy phase was your Emperor's New Groove and that sort of stuff.
I'm talking about before that, because they're still putting money into the Emperor's New Groove. I'm talking about stuff like The Sword in the Stone and The Secret of Nim and just really poorly done animation.
It was at a point where you couldn't just right away tell, is this Disney, is this Bluth? I mean, now it's pretty obvious when something's Disney versus not Disney, but at that point they were really not standing apart.
And so the guy who designs Two-Face, who's in this episode, and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to get off my soapbox about the history of this show.
Yeah.
When it came to designing Two-Face, they really wanted their own version of him. And because everything that they had seen was it's really garish and really ugly to look at. And so they're experimenting with stuff we can't use the purple that Joker uses. And, his sometimes he's wearing an orange suit and he's that just looks awful too. So that's how they come to the black and white. The black and white suit is that it just looks so classic, to the point where they literally have to go back to see if DC's ever done this before. So they're not stealing from anyone, and they realize that they're not. So, I see. So now our Two-Face is going to have the black and white suit. And now, that's the Two-Face I want, is the black and white
Yeah.
suit Two-Face.
And it's so iconic that when you see this, you just assume it's always been that way.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
it
just
certainly
works.
feels
like
like
out
that.
of the gate it worked.
And I never watched a lot of Batman the Animated Series, but I've watched some. But I watch it infrequently enough that every time I watch it, I'm impressed again. Like, wow, I can't like I've already forgotten how good the Clayface one was that we
Right.
watched, or the Mr. Freeze. And I watched this again, and I'm like, it's amazing how much pride the people making this are taking in their work. I mean, it's written like a stage play, like Eugene O'Neill or something. I don't know. Is that a stage play writer? Sometimes I get my names confused.
Sounds good to me. I like that.
Like
That sounds
it's
appropriate.
honestly written like a stage play. The score is orchestral, but also they're not afraid to just not have any background music. A lot of times the sound mixing is great. You can tell this is hand animated by legit artists, and it takes a long time. It feels like the difference between a craftsman home and a subdivision housing development home that's trying to look like a craftsman home. Like, you can tell the real deal. It's just amazing. Like, it's got its quirks and its foibles, and it lacks smoothness sometimes, but it does that because they're actually drawing this. The artists who are coming up with these ideas are drawing it, and they're not outsourcing it, to slave wages in some other country to get it done with more frames per second or something. It's every time I watch it, the voice talent, I'm just amazed all over again that somebody actually thought an after school cartoon was worth this kind of effort. And I always feel bad that I never have appreciated it on a more regular basis.
And
Were you like, I was surprised with who is the voice talent for Two-Face, because I always thought it was Clancy Brown, and that's how he became Lex Luthor. But no, it's not. It's
Bull.
Richard Mole.
Yeah, Bull from Night Court.
Yeah, which now that I'm thinking about it, he would have a really nice niche in Hollywood as just being not Clancy Brown. Oh, we can't get Clancy Brown, let's get Richard Mole.
Yeah. And, kind of taking today's way of doing voice casting and applying it to, what was this, 90, 91, something like that. I was kind of surprised at who was the voice cast, because I'm pretty sure that Two-Face is a person of color here, right?
well, that's the tough part, because it's 92 when this one debuts, because everyone's very almost ambiguous in a lot of ways, because we're still coming off of Harvey Dent being Billy D. Williams in the Batman 89. So he kind of might be, but then like he's around other people that we look at and we go like, oh, that's a white person, and the skin tone's close to the same. So like, to me, it was almost kind of ambiguous in a lot of ways. Because but you're right. Initially, you just go like, "Oh, well, that's a person of color to some degree,"
Yeah,
but
right.
maybe,
I'm thinking,
maybe not.
okay,
I don't know. It's weird.
They're rolling with the Billy D interpretation. Tim Burton's Batman obviously influenced this, but then, like you said, sometimes I was like, "Well, was I presumptuous there?" So I thought, "Well, I'll look up the voice casting. Maybe that'll help clear it up." And when I looked that up, I was like, "No, it doesn't really clear it up." And also, that we're talking 92. You said so 92 for an after school quote unquote children's cartoon, and interracial relationships kind of a big deal. 92, or I won't say that a relationship's a big deal. Its depiction in a kid's cartoon wasn't commonplace in 92.
Yeah. I mean, now for me, so 1992, I'm 10 years old. So like, I am in the prime category for this. We would get home from school, latchkey kids, ain't nobody home. So we get the key under the mat there and open it up, and Batman and Animaniacs and all that kind of good stuff. And that's what I really liked about this show, is that it never, I mean, just like when you saw, Burton's Batman, it was just like, oh man, this is the Batman that we've been waiting for. This is this dark Batman. It seemed, brooding and everything. And the animated series brought that over so well that when you watch this thing, in a lot of ways you go, well, this isn't really for kids. It's kid friendly.
I don't think my kids could sit through it. Like I don't even know if it's that kid friendly now when you have competition.
Well, I mean, as much as like you can sit your child in front of it and you wouldn't be like, oh, they're going to, have problems with this or whatever.
Yeah,
they could watch it well enough.
And it's still, though, close to the era where G.I. Joe had to use laser guns. They weren't allowed to use bullets. And here we've got Tommy guns with bullets.
Oh yeah, people are shooting everything. No one ever dies, and all the criminals fall off. Into a big giant pool of water or something somewhere.
There's a reason it was on Fox and not like syndicated on some of the more established networks with their different what do you call it? Their whatever their
Standards and
protocols.
practices.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was trying to think of. Standards and practices.
Well, they go about it where they're making it for kids, of course, and I don't think that I think you're underestimating the power of a harpoon gun. Batman's constantly shooting off that Batarang gun that he has with the rope tied to the end of it. It's basically his main mode of transportation on this show, and it is pretty terrific. If I'm a kid, that's the first thing I want. Like I don't want the costume. I don't want the belt. Just get me the harpoon gun.
Yeah, and that was what was so cool because it also gave him Spider-Man power, so to speak.
Yeah,
you could just kind of and you'd be swinging across the town and stuff. And sometimes that's his mode of transportation. Like it's not even we don't even worry about the Batmobile sometimes. I'm going straight and just zooming across the city over the skyline, and it's so cool.
Yeah, that's what
Very
I just said.
So. Yeah,
I'm reiterating.
Oh, I see.
it's not plagiarism if it's reiteration. Something else when I was looking at the voice cast here, the guy that played Dean Wormer in Animal House is Rupert Thorne here. I wouldn't have recognized his voice, but looking it up, I thought that was kind of cool too. Was this the first show to really get grade A voice talent?
Oh, there were plenty of other shows that got him, but like on a regular basis, Batman did because it was a quality show. It was a show that didn't feel like it was some silly little kid show, and so people, if you look at the the guest list over the years, it's pretty spectacular the amount of talent that they got rolling through those voiceover studios. It's kind of astounding.
And, despite the fact it's obviously a huge collaborative work, I mean, so much credit for Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. They're kind of the core of this show, the creative force that gets credited with so much from it. And it's amazing what it did for their careers,
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, everybody involved with the show, like the story editor is amazing on this show. The fact that they have each episode has its own title card. Like if you're looking at the art and you go to like IMDb and you look at each episode has its own title card, and they're all gorgeous. Like each title card is gorgeous for these episodes.
Wow.
And so, you just keep running into things where like they wanted to do something like Paul Dini and Bruce Timm are talking about the style they want for Batman. And Bruce Timm basically in 5 minutes draws the Batman that they're going to end up using. And so they're like, well, that's amazing. And they keep fighting against the Fleischer Superman. Like they're like, look, we want that inspiration, but it shouldn't just be that.
Yeah.
And eventually the showrunner comes in and says, I'm thinking Fleischer Superman. And so Bruce Timm and Paul Dini are like, you know what? Well, let's stop fighting this. Let's get as close to that as we can.
I mean, if you're going to get close to something, it might be the greatest superhero animation of all time.
Right.
Fleischer Superman.
Without the rotoscoping, but yes.
Yeah. And also, I got to admit, I'm cherry picking my episodes. Like I've never sat and just watched a whole season. Plus the earlier seasons, this is easier to do, but these episodes are such character studies on the villains. They figured out that's where the magic is. And, the first part of this two-parter, there's hardly any Batman, and it's still a really compelling story. And like I said, sometimes a lot of people would say Frasier was a sitcom that was written like a stage play. And that's how I feel about this cartoon. It's a cartoon that at times is written like a stage play. Like it wouldn't need big special effects. There's only a few flashy things that happen, and it's just really compelling and quiet, and you feel yourself squeezing closer and closer to the TV because you really are invested in these cartoon characters like they're real people.
And there's some episodes that include almost no Batman at all, even. Like that's how strong that this show is in its like, hey, we know what we're doing. We're giving you this story. You may not even see Batman for 90% of this show. And they're really strong on that. And that's what also made me really appreciate this show is that, and the reason why, Batman and Spider-Man are two of my favorite characters is really they both have such a strong rogues gallery of villains.
And particularly the way this show explored the villains, because, there are other animated Batman shows with the same rogues gallery, and they don't do the character studies like they do on this show. I mean, that's part of what makes it work. Batman sells the ticket, but the story keeps you from leaving during intermission. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, I mean, like, who thought that, like, there'd be a really great episode about the Clock King? And you're like, well, what? Why would I want to see? No, it's really good.
Yeah. And, I really enjoyed Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and Bruce Timm's later animated work. But I'm just so glad that this animation still has a raw edge to it, that it's not crisp and clean like what would come later when it was all, essentially computer generated. I like that about this.
Speaking of crisp and clean, if anyone has this on Blu-ray, email me at hearmoviepodcast@gmail.com. I've heard it's worth the upgrade. I don't know or not. I'd really like to know, because watching it streaming on HBO, it's like, it looks okay. It looks fine. It doesn't look like garbage. And I've got the DVDs from past, but I heard the new Blu-rays look good. I want to hear somebody that may have seen that if I want to drop some coin on this, which I kind of do, because like I said, it's one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, I would say to you to go ahead and do it. I mean, it's like literally one of your favorite things.
Now, Bruce, how many, and you may not know this right off the top, but I think you probably know better than Sean or I, how many different origins or whatever have we gone through with Two-Face in the past? Has it kind of been one thing? Or
I only know 3. I know a comic book origin where an angry criminal throws acid in Harvey Dent's face in court when he's prosecuting. Then, of course, I know the Nolan version with the explosion, and then I know this one. So, yeah, this really reinvented Two-Face, and more importantly than the way his face got disfigured, because the origin story had always been his face gets disfigured and that causes him to have this psychotic break. But here, he's Two-Face. He's already Two-Face before the disfigurement, and I thought that was like a master stroke. That's something that I was not aware of ever having been done before. Just like the way they reinvented the story of Mr. Freeze, totally elevated the value of that character all across all forms. I think it's really cool the way that Two-Face is already Two-Face. Big Bad Horror already exists before the accident.
And I think, I don't remember the exact number of episodes, but like Harvey Dent himself before this episode shows up about like 3 or 4 episodes, I think, previously. So they had already kind of established him as Harvey Dent, and we're just waiting for this moment, 16, 17 episodes into the series to then introduce Two-Face. So they've been laying the brickwork for a while.
Well, I'm glad they didn't recast him when he finally became Two-Face, because that didn't work out so well for the Schumacher version.
Let's put Tommy Lee Jones in this role. That'd be perfect. It seems like the perfect bet.
Now, here's a question for you. Another thing I like about this is between episode 1 and episode 2, or episode 17 and 18, however you want to phrase it, but between the first part and the second part, I feel like an indeterminate amount of time passes, but they don't give us a card that says like 3 months later or something, because Two-Face has to get his henchmen. He has to sort of build a little bit of his early criminal empire. And I like that they give us the kind of credit to just figure that out without being told 6 months later or something like that.
Do you think the twin henchmen, do you think they come as a pair, or do you audition them separately and then, they're hoping to get together?
The only other way that goes is if one's a criminal and one's a cop. So they either got to do the same thing or the exact opposites. That's how twins work. You can't just be different.
It's also got to be hard to find a warehouse within your theme.
Yeah. Thank goodness Gotham has the most warehouses per square mile of any fictional city.
We're landlocked, but somehow there's a lot of docks.
They have like an old abandoned harmonica factory, like stuff you didn't even know whole factories were dedicated to. They've got abandoned ones.
But yeah, I love the that place where it's divided down one half. Where does he decide to spend most of his time? Does he just
coin flip?
Oh, and let's talk about that, because that's another angle to this character that I really like is that everything is available, good or bad, on that flip of that coin, and it still holds up. Even though earlier in the show and stuff, you see that they've got this whole, hey, here's a whole bunch of silver dollars. You know exactly where they're going with it, but it's still satisfying when it pays off.
And that has been done several times with the character, both in comics and I'm pretty sure maybe even in movies at some point. But yeah, that's one of those things. It's like, well, Superman has to have, his origin on Krypton, and Two-Face has to have the scene where he flips the coin and Batman outsmarts him about throwing coins everywhere.
Do you think there's anybody who is a Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face fan? Like, no, that's my Two-Face.
Oh, they're out there, man. I've learned that the hard way. Everything is somebody's favorite thing.
I feel like if that's someone's favorite Two-Face, they had to be a very young child when Batman Forever came out, and it was just like the thing that cements Two-Face in their head for them, and that's the only way that they can see that character. But even then, I just, once you grow up to be an adult, you got to know that that's not great.
Yeah, but I can still remember one time when I was still living in North Carolina, trick-or-treaters came to the house. There's a kid dressed like Indiana Jones, and I said, hey, Raiders of the Lost Ark fan? He's like, nope, Crystal Skull. So, everything is somebody's favorite thing.
His little sister's dressed up as the monkey with the pompadour.
It was a great costume, though. It's like, okay, man, if that's your thing, respect, because I love the costume.
Was he in a fridge and he just kept walking around as Indiana Jones in a refrigerator?
No, that was his sister. She was dressed as Kyle Rayner's girlfriend. Sorry, Ron.
Deep pulse. I love that. They like you said, they treat his multiple personality disorder, but they almost treat it like it's just so okay. Let's put it on Front Street. Do you guys believe anybody has multiple personalities like this, like is portrayed in this show?
I don't know, man. I don't know that very many mental illnesses are portrayed properly in media, but dissociative identity disorder, I mean, it's a studied, peer-reviewed, published condition that, exists, dissociative states. But, I don't know that anything's ever quite like it is on TV.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's flavors of it in there, but like that... Bruce is so nice because he's talking to Harvey. He's like, and I thought this was really good. Again, early 90s, them going, hey, there's nothing wrong with going to someone to go get yourself some help, which, is something that we didn't really talk about a lot, and we didn't give people good, reason to go and actually seek out help if in that you need help.
And all I can think is, hey, why don't you listen to your own advice, Bruce? Because, there's few people in Gotham that need help more than Bruce Wayne.
But at the exact same time, because we talk about this great professional that's going to be able to help him overcome this, cut to exactly next scene, and she's got the watch going back and forth going, look into my eyes. Follow the watch, and that's the medical professional that we're going to.
Want some personal storytelling here?
Sure.
I had a psychiatry professor in medical school who absolutely overdiagnosed dissociative identity disorder. Like, he diagnosed almost all his patients with multiple personality, and he loved to hypnotize people. And he later went to prison for shooting his patient's husband because he was having an affair with that patient. So he is kind of like a real life Batman villain.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. It's all in the newspapers back then.
That was an unexpected turn.
Yes, he's a literal comic book villain. That was one of my college professors. Somewhere between Harley Quinn and Two-Face here.
I've told this story elsewhere. I don't remember. Well, welcome to the Quickie Mart. So I've told this story elsewhere, but I had this thing once where I went to an open mic, and as I walked in, I was late to the show because I had work or whatever previously. I come in late, and there's a guy that's on stage, and they go, "We're looking for a volunteer." I walk in just as they're asking for a volunteer, and so then I was forced to go up on stage and take part in a hypnosis comedy routine, which was neither hypnosis nor comedy.
Oh, I bet it was hilarious.
I had
Did you say open mic hypnosis?
Yes, this was open mic.
Oh gosh, that's got to be the worst kind of hypnosis.
There was no one there, and I felt so bad because the guy that was doing it he was just so sweet of a guy. He was never really into the comedy a whole bunch, but he was a sweet dude. And like after, like I went along with everything because I was just like I was going along to get along. I'm like, hey, I'm up here on stage. I might as well just do everything that he's telling me to do. But he afterwards he came up to me and was just like, hey man, I appreciate it. Did it really work on you?
Oh, get out of here.
and I said, and I didn't have the heart to tell him much else. I was just like, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I felt really relaxed. That was as best as I could give him without being a complete jerk.
How kind of you.
So inside baseball, guys, do either of you know how those hypnosis stage acts work? I don't.
Poorly.
I think that it has to just be like they have 7 plants
There we go.
in the
Sorry.
audience or something.
It's too late. But it was true.
Like if you're at a show with 8 other people and you're the only one who doesn't go up on stage, that's a clue.
Oh, yeah.
All I can tell you is that the very few that I've worked with in the past, and I've only worked with like maybe like 2 or 3. I was very fortunate that way. Is that the 2 or 3 that I've worked with, they either have somebody in the crowd who is a plant, or they know that they know like the person to pick out, like because they just want to be part of the show.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've seen is
because even knowing the person to pick out, I'm impressed by that. Like I'm impressed if you can do anything other than a plant.
But most people, the people that go like, hey, who wants to be in on this? They'll raise their hand and they're just in it. It's exactly the same situation that I was. And they're like, well, I'm on stage. Unfortunately, my guy didn't have me do anything that was funny. Because I would have loved that. I would have had some fun with that, and I think I may have made a joke and like had a sly side eye look at something once or twice. I was trying to get a laugh, quite frankly. But I think that's mostly just people just letting loose, and then they go, "Well, I didn't really know that I was being wild and crazy." It's an excuse for them to let go and do whatever that they want to do.
Yeah, I'm still not going to try it.
No, you shouldn't. No, nor should anyone go to like if you see, up on a marquee like hypnotist tonight. Go ahead and do yourself a favor and don't buy that ticket. Just trying to get your significant other to do something is like you probably got more hypnosis power than that guy does.
Oh man,
forget it. I like this story a whole bunch. I like the portrayal of Two-Face of Harvey really before he becomes, and those almost snap moments that he has where because I think we all can relate to that at one point or another, just wanting to grab someone and just scream at their face. But what kills me is how he continually does it and really doesn't understand that that's what he's doing. It's like,
well, that's the dissociation, man.
But at the same time, it feels like he kind of like at least the early ones, feels like he knows it. Feels like he knows what he's doing there, and he's just getting it, his anger across and out there. And I love how he's also sweating all the time. I thought that was a nice touch.
He is very sweaty.
Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Adam, and I'm going to say maybe, just maybe, you have taken a dissociative substance before.
Oh, maybe.
And there's like a weird moment where like what you're doing, but it almost feels like you're watching yourself do it rather than being inside of yourself while you're doing it. Do you follow me there? Like even strong cough syrup can make you feel this way.
That's true.
And I think dissociative identity disorder or other dissociative disorders, that's what it's like. Like you're doing it, but at the same time you almost feel like you're watching yourself do it.
Yeah.
That you don't have the substance involved.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I wasn't burned by a whole bunch of acid and chemicals, so that didn't,
Well, keep trying. It's never too late.
Also, Adam's nickname in college was Tussin.
Add a Tussin over there.
Just rub some on and you're good to go, baby. But I also like just the term "drank" is so fun to me. Just purple drink. It's so good.
Yeah.
But I have known people that do that, and let me tell you, kids, don't you. That is a bad road for anybody to go down. It does not end well. So do yourself a favor and don't do that.
Grew up in a trailer park. Very familiar with the various forms of dextromethorphan out there.
Hey, listen, I don't care what Showtime shows you watch, okay?
Exactly. I also like, back to the show here, I also like that really what becomes the actual conflict is Batman trying to save Harvey from himself, not trying to save the city from Two-Face or not trying to stop a criminal plot. But this is my friend and he has a problem, an illness, something that he's lost control of, and I want to help him. And I like that. I feel like that's missing far too often in superhero stories.
That is pretty great, where he's trying to fix the He's trying to fix the disease instead of the problem. Like that's pretty great.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things, not to get too off track again, but one of the things I kept thinking about after this two-parter was over was, does Batman now think that that's a good way to like just completely vex all villains? Where like, you know, next time he meets Joker, he's just throwing coins up in the air.
I like that idea that like everybody thinks what a brilliant idea he had. Then you find out that's how he's tried to solve every problem for 10 years.
And
It's
it
the
just
first time
worked
it's
the
worked.
one time.
That's the one that caught, or worse than that, then he just goes like, it worked with coins with Two-Face. What if I threw up a whole bunch of chattering teeth? Maybe that'll knock the Joker off of his game.
Yeah, I like that. A bunch of chattering teeth. Talk about a utility belt.
But I liked the fact that we see a dream sequence of Batman who is going through, you know, he's going through something himself, just trying to come to grips with the fact of he needs to be the person to save his friend. And he thinks back to his parents and stuff that are like, why didn't you save us, Bruce? And that just the level of guilt that he has on his head all the time, and what it seems like that character's continually taking with him as he goes on as Batman. I enjoy that.
Yeah, and I like that kind of inner conflict. I think it's great, man. He's waking up just in pouring sweats, fell asleep at the bat pewter down in the bat cave in his chair. I like it. I like showing, I mean, I like that it subtly shows what an absolute mess Batman really is.
Yeah, that's
And
one
it's
thing
like
that we
he
don't
can't help
think about.
himself, so he's trying to help his friend.
Oh, and we got a fantastic cameo from the Bat Cycle, which is great because he's riding the motorcycle, and of course he puts on the helmet with the bat ears in it. I love it so
Beautiful.
much.
You know, they couldn't help themselves when his eyes are in the motorcycle helmet. They do squint a little bit once he starts talking. Like, it also is fully articulate.
I still think the best superhero cartoon helmet was Wolverine's that matched his crazy hair.
But I'm always waiting for, you know, him to just go like, what? I'm sorry, I've got the cowl, then I've got this thing on top of it. I can't hear a thing you're saying, Alfred. It's too many layers.
Man. And it's raining outside. Why not take the car? And also, I kind of missed it somewhere. I watched this twice, but I kind of missed when Batman really hurt his ribs, because he's like holding his hurting ribs. So I kind of missed when that happened.
I thought that Two-Face stuck him.
Oh, is that what it was? Because at some point it's like, okay, he's clearly not at 100%, but I'm not sure why.
Yeah, they always kind of had to cripple Batman a little bit because I think we all knew that Batman was just, you know, kind of the top of the top. So every now and then we're like, well, he would just kick the crap out of this guy in like 2 seconds. He's been drugged. Yeah, that's the ticket. Or, you know, he's got a broken leg. Something about him that he can't do whatever it is that he needs to do.
He's very tired.
And I know we've talked about this several times before, but I just got to mention it again, how enjoyable small stakes stories can be after you've seen a bunch of saving the world, saving the universe.
It's so wonderful. So wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like a quarter of this show takes place in like a hospital.
Yep.
and you're riveted the entire time because they decided to tell a good story and not necessarily, you know, pack it to the brim with wall-to-wall action and everything,
Yeah,
which is what a lot of those shows
I
would
wasn't
do.
watching Trapper John MD for a while.
Well, before we get to our final review here, we do have to ask ourselves one very important question, and that is how this television show relates back one-to-one with Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Did you guys get the text that I sent you during the show?
Yeah,
I did.
That's Melissa Smith, who we're about to talk about here.
That's not like it looks like
Wait
someone.
for it.
Okay.
Melissa Smith was the client services manager for Batman the Animated Series, and I have no idea what that job is. She was also the director of operations on the Sylvester Stallone movie Lockup, and I also have no idea what that job is, but it sounds like a job that involves saying, I'll have to look into that a lot. As I did some research into Melissa Smith's career, I see that I have no idea what she does for a living, even though she's been in the business since 1985 when she worked on Prizzi's Honor, a movie that no one under the age of 55 has ever seen. There's job titles she has that sound fake all throughout this time. And if this lady's been punking everyone since 1985, good on her. That's the best long con in history. Melissa Smith also worked with Stallone on a movie we don't speak about very often on this show, and that's the movie Over the Top. She was the post facilities manager, yet another job title I've never heard of, and Stallone was the lead character of that movie, where it's about truck driving and arm wrestling. When asked why he agreed to do the movie years later, Stallone said, Menahem Golan kept offering me more and more money until I finally thought, what the hell, no one will see it. And before you ask HMPers, I'm way ahead of you. Menahem Golan was a producer and director for Cannon Films, which is the legendary company that brought you masterpieces like Superman 4, Masters of the Universe, and Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo. How Melissa Smith got herself out of the Hollywood ghetto will be anyone's guess, but she did. And she has the most insane photo posted on her IMDb I've ever seen on the website. Think it's a bad Photoshop, maybe? I hope it's a joke. I have no idea. I literally have no idea. And there you have it, HMPers and Dingalingers. This week's Stallone connection is a lady who sounds like she's had fake jobs in Hollywood for more than 30 years, Melissa Smith. Adam and Bruce, this is the 346th episode of this bit, and still no word from Sylvester Stallone. I don't know if this lady's real.
She does look like she's kind of made up by a computer.
It looks like 3 different photos were pieced together in 1998.
Yes.
She's like wearing like a cable knit sweater that is also a giant turtleneck that goes all the way up to the jawline. Then a same colored kind of fur looking jacket on the outside of that. She's very bizarre looking. We'll put that up on our social medias. But
she looks like she's having a bad time.
No, she's not happy to be there.
The hair is also different from the face.
Deep fake, it's not.
Looks like she has a really hard time eating a sub. She's got a really tiny little mouth. You'd have to go, Copperhead to get in on a Jimmy John's there. Oh, by the way, for any of you that are interested in canon stuff, there's a documentary out there called Electric Boogaloo: The Wild Untold Story of Cannon Films.
Beautiful movie.
Wonderful movie.
Great flick. So check that out. All right, everybody, let's get down to our rating here. Here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to our subreddit, man, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. Bruce, where does Two-Face from Batman the Animated Series fall on the Robin rating system for you?
Well, as a whole, Batman the Animated Series is something that's like made with so much love and such, such craft and such aspiration that I'm surprised it succeeded. Usually those things are like, it was just too good to last, and it actually lasted. So it's like a gold standard for animation. I mean, it really is for superhero animation. The storytelling, not just the way that it looks, but like the storytelling, the voice acting, the intelligent use of music and sound. This isn't the best 2-parter that ever appeared in this series, and it's still amazing. So I can't really go much lower than Dick Grayson on this stuff.
Very good, Sean.
Yeah, for me, it's Dick Grayson too. I mean, this is the pinnacle of Batman. A show so good that even people who aren't big cartoon fans like myself look at this as like, well, this is one of the best Batman pieces of pop culture you'll ever see. I mean, it's a Dick Grayson.
Yeah, Dick Grayson's all around. It's no surprise coming out of me because this is like my absolute wheelhouse. I was the kid that came home every day after school and watched this show with all the other Fox Kids shows because they did a great job. They were marketing right to me, and boy, I bought it hook, line, and sinker every single time. Kevin Conroy is my Batman. That is the portrayal of Batman that I will always have. And you read a Batman comic, that's the voice I'm hearing when I do it, and you can't get much better. And again, I love that even at 10 years old, I knew that this was something special, this show, and it's continued to be so over these years. And that's tough to say with a lot of stuff, especially when it comes down to kids animation. You go back and watch some of that stuff, and man, you go, were we just really dumb kids? What was going on? Who allowed us to be this stupid to watch these things? And this isn't something that you look back at watching it as an adult and think, oh, this is really poorly made and I must have been a dumb kid. You think, man, we were really lucky to have something that was of this quality all the way back then on network television, no less. I mean, to get something that's like this, you would have to have, you'd almost be looking at a cable show or something like that to get, this quality level. I don't think that you would think that on a syndicated Fox show. So, Dick Grayson's all around then. Not too shabby, everybody. And maybe we'll there's a couple other two-parters. They did a lot of two-parters for an animated show as well, which is something that was kind of surprising and not something that was the norm back then. So we'll probably cover more of those in the future. So thank you to me for picking that out. I was gonna say something. I'm like, who am I blaming for this one? Oh, it's me.
How humble of you, Adam.
What can I say? I like me a whole bunch. And I like everyone that supports this show over at patreon.com/HMPP, pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, all that kind of good stuff. And boy, oh boy, do we have a giant slate for you for next week. We'll talk about that in just a second. Bruce, until then, when can we find more of your work on the internet?
Adam, what's the best kind of ninja?
The one you can't see.
The Ultimate Ninja. Nth Man, The Ultimate Ninja. I've got that on YouTube. So a lot of folks don't know about Nth Man. Go check it out. Check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie. This Thursday, I'm dropping a really exciting episode about Spider-Ham that I hope people check out. So I'm still begging people to please go check out my work on YouTube.
His YouTube is also to the nth degree awesome. Boom, gotcha. Sean?
Thanks.
You can find me on Twitter.
Just find it. Just look around. You'll get it. The links are in the show notes. So if anyone does want to do that. So next week, everybody, we've got we've gone from a week where we have just this show, no WandaVision or any other extra show, and it's only, even though we got 2 episodes of Batman the Animated Series, it's only 44 minutes worth of stuff. Next week, we're going in the complete opposite direction and doing more stuff than God or country has time to do. We're going to be covering. It's been 4 or 5 years, however long it's been, an ungodly amount of time, but finally the Snyder Cut will see the light of day. And we'll talk about that and whether or not that was a good thing, whether it was worth the wait or not, and what they decided to do a little bit different. So we'll be covering that next week. And, of course, our brand new show, if you had been listening to WandaVision, why don't you keep subscribed to that? Because next week we're transferring over to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And we'll be doing a 30-question show on that as well. Same feed, so you don't even have to subscribe to something else, man. It stays nice and fresh and easy for you. So we'll be covering all of that good stuff. Join us next week for all of that good stuff. And remember, emails at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com, iTunes reviews, patreon.com/HMP, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode. For Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Porters. Stay super, everybody.
I'm Marty Navy.
Can we forget about the things I said when I was drunk? I didn't mean to call you that. I can't remember what was said or what you threw at me. Please tell me why. My car's in the front yard and I'm sleeping with my clothes on. Came in through the window last night and you're gone. It's no surprise to me, I am my own worst enemy. 'Cause every now and then I kick the living out of me. The smoke alarm